Blog Talk Radio.
Next guest is Michael Gerber, author of the very successful E-Myth Revisited. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to the show. Michael?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you, Michael?
I'm wonderful.
Good. Michael, joining us is my co-host, Don Johnson, who's also the president of Diamond Financial Services of New Jersey. And Don, Michael, works with prospective franchisees when they're ready to finance their franchise. And I know you wanted to say hi, Don, to Michael.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And it's really an honor to spend some time with you today. And we have a lot of potential entrepreneurs listening to the show, so I know they're real excited about being educated today. And
wonderful.
Marty and I feel we're both entrepreneurs. You know, that might change, though, after today's show. We'll have to see.
You never can tell.
Absolutely. Michael, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and, congratulate you on the tremendous success of the E-Myth and also congratulate you on your newest venture, the Dreaming Room, which is an exciting concept that we're going to talk about in a moment. I was reading an article, Michael, I don't know if you're listening to the show early on in segment 1, how a lot of younger people, Generation Yers, are becoming their own boss. And one of the first things I recommend to this particular audience is that they read the E-Myth. And for our listeners who are new to entrepreneurship and franchising, Michael, could you describe what the E-Myth is?
Well, the E-Myth is exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's the entrepreneurial myth.
Right.
It essentially says that most people who go into business for themselves really aren't entrepreneurs, but what I call technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. So they create a job for themselves instead of a business. Calling it a business, it is a business, it does business, but unfortunately it completely depends upon them to do what the business does. So the mechanic starts an auto repair business, the cook starts a restaurant, the doctor starts a medical practice, each of them believing because they know how to do the work of the business, they know how to build a business that works, and it's completely untrue. And unfortunately, the reason so many small businesses fail.
Interesting.
So they start to lose that entrepreneurial spirit because they get so involved in doing all the work themselves, it sounds like, Michael.
Yeah, well, they're passionate about becoming their own boss.
Right.
And they start the business to do the work they know how to do. I mean, the logic of it is obvious that you wouldn't start a business you don't know how to do. Right. You start a business to do what you know how to do and what you were trained how to do and what you've been doing in the job you had before. So the logic goes that if I do what I know how to do, I can start my own business and do it for me and take home all the money.
Right.
So they go to work. Exactly. And the problem really is just that. They go to work in the business. Mm-hmm. And the E-Myth says you have to go to work on the business.
Exactly.
Which, after all, is what every great franchisor did. And the franchisor goes to work on the business to build the franchise prototype so that it can be scaled, builds a system that works rather than a job for himself, and then, of course, replicates that prototype time and time and time and time and time again, which is where the business format franchise came from.
Right. Like your Ray Kroc's, Michael.
Exactly. Like in Ray Kroc, and in an un-Starbucks way, an unfranchised way, like Starbucks, or like Walmart, or like Federal Express,
exactly.
Or like Dell Computer. Like any extraordinary company, the entrepreneur builds a business operating system that is enabled that company to scale. So it's all about scale.
Absolutely.
So that's a big question, Michael. Your typical business owner starting out, they can start to do well, reach a certain level, but don't really know how to take it to the next level.
Exactly, because they never really started it with the idea in mind that they were going to take it to the next level.
Right.
They started it as an alternative to working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that mind shift is really, really critical for anybody who's thinking about a franchise. The other part of it is that many of us say that franchisees are entrepreneurs.
Right.
Well, the truth of it is entrepreneurs make the worst franchisee of all.
Absolutely.
Because entrepreneurs want to do their own thing.
Exactly.
And creativity is lessened.
Of course.
To a degree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get a franchisee to buy your franchise, and that franchisee is an entrepreneur. That franchisee is going to change your franchise the minute he starts, the minute she starts in it, and that's the worst thing they could possibly do.
Right, it's a disaster.
It's a disaster. What they need to do is to go to work in the franchise, managing it, the system that works. And so what a great franchisor is really looking for is a great manager or a great technician.
Exactly.
Because many franchisors are really selling jobs.
Right, absolutely.
They're saying, here's a great job. It really works. You don't even have to think about it. We'll teach you how to do it. All you got to do is to learn the system, and you'll be successful. Don't mess with the system.
Absolutely.
Really, to really think inside the box, don't think outside.
You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the franchisor, Michael, is what you're saying, is the true entrepreneur, or the franchisee is more the manager or the technician.
You got it.
Interesting.
If it's done ideally.
Right, absolutely.
So understand that's the whole quandary about franchising. Actually, what people are doing when they buy a franchise is they're buying a job. But it's a job they can depend upon because all of the problems related to it have been worked out in advance. That's the idea of it.
Right, absolutely.
So, of course, in order to know whether or not you're acquiring a great franchise, e.g., a great job, understand a job for a manager or a job for a technician, you really, really have to do your due diligence about the business operating system, the lead generation, the lead conversion, the client fulfillment systems, which comprise the business operating system, to see that those systems work predictably every single time.
Right, right. I was telling Don earlier, Michael, that we're going to have to change our tagline because our slogan for franchise interviews is asking the entrepreneur who owns one. I said, God, I hope Michael doesn't hear that because...
That's okay. You see, I'm old enough, I don't care.
Exactly. Michael, what prompted you to write the E-Myth? I never asked you that question. I have had the opportunity in the past to interview you for a newsletter several years ago, but what prompted you to write it? I never asked you that question.
Well, actually, it was a complete accident, as most things are in my life. A stringer from a then publisher called Ballinger Books, his fiancée worked for my company. It was then called the Michael Thomas Corporation, morphed into E-Myth Worldwide.
Right.
But he came to hear a seminar I was doing called Key Frustrations in a Small and Growing Business and What to Do About Them. It's a 3-hour seminar. It was the progenitor of the E-Myth. I never used the word the E-Myth then. Essentially, we told the story about why most small businesses don't work, and I would stand up there in front of 60, 100, 150 small business owners and just beat them about the head and shoulders and tell them that their key frustrations came from the fact that they didn't know how to run a business. And that's what their problem was. Them. Fix them, you fix the business. So all I needed to do to fix them is to change the way they think about business. And instantly something will happen that never could happen before. Well, in any case, this stringer, this guy who worked for Ballinger, heard me, and he came up to me afterwards and said, how'd you like to write a book? And I said, sure, about what? He said, about the seminar. And I said, well, yeah. He said he had a publisher who wanted to publish a business book on small business. He went back there, they said yes, he came back, I said yes, and the E-Myth was born.
That's incredible.
That's interesting. And also, just thinking, hearing you speak, Michael, taking it back a little further, I mean, with your success at E-Myth, I mean, what basically was your background before even E-Myth came about?
Oh, man, my background was everything. I mean, I was a carpenter, I was a saxophone player, I was an encyclopedia salesman, I was a poet, I was a beat, I was a hippie, I was this, I was
more diversified than that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was everything. Everything and nothing.
That's something. I mean, did you have any idea, Michael, the book would be so successful? I mean,
I believed it was going to be absolutely knocked down dead successful.
Right.
Of course, I believed the company was going to be knocked down dead successful.
Right.
And I believe the idea was a knockdown dead, absolutely brilliant idea.
Absolutely.
The whole idea of the reason why most small businesses don't work proved itself out, that people give themselves a job and then they're working for a living, and then there's all this stuff they don't know how to do and all this stuff they need to learn how to do, but it's the context of what a business is in relationship to a guy who starts one. And that is the critical and most fundamental thing that the E-Myth has done. It's truly transformed the way people think about a business.
Right, absolutely.
You must take a lot of satisfaction knowing top business people use your book as a guide. It's
it's
great fun. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about the book, Michael, too, is it's timeless. This is a book or concept. That could be read 50 years or 100 years down the road.
That's what's really rewarding is that the sales of the book continue unabated, week after week after week. More books are sold. It's extraordinary when you think about it. The book came out in 1986,
right,
and it just became a bestseller on New York Times bestseller list. It came out in 1986, and it just hit the New York Times bestseller list. So doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah, it does. It's incredible.
Yeah. A woman we're having on the show next week, Michael, Carol, she's a franchise consultant. She makes all of her prospective franchisees actually read the E-Myth.
That's great.
It is. It's incredible.
And how many E-Myth books, Michael, have you written up to this point? There's several.
Seven books. The last is E-Myth Mastery, the 7 essential disciplines for building a world-class company. The preceding one's the E-Myth Physician, why most medical practices don't work and what to do about it. The E-Myth Contractor, why most contracting businesses don't work and what to do about it.
Right.
The E-Myth Revisited, the E-Myth Manager, why most managers don't work and what to do about it. And then, of course, the original E-Myth. And then there was one in there that was not an E-Myth book called the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, yeah. That's out of print, isn't it, Michael?
It is.
Okay.
And which is the new book you're working on right now?
The new book is called Awakening the Entrepreneur Within, how ordinary people build extraordinary companies without any experience to guide them.
That's something. I'm looking forward to that. When's that coming out, Michael?
That'll be out in February of 2008.
That's great.
If I get off the phone and go write it.
Exactly.
Well, you've really niched out some of your books. You can just keep going on in certain industries and really be specific to us, like,
and that's a plan. My plan is for 27 E-Myth books in 27 vertical markets.
That's something.
They'll all be successful. Great.
Has anyone approached you, Michael, as far as writing a book about yourself, like a biography or anything like that? Or
No, nobody wants to know about me.
No.
Well, they might want to know about when you were a hippie, though.
Exactly.
Yes.
That would make a great story, yeah.
Right.
I was wondering, Michael, if you could tell us about your exciting new entrepreneurial venture in the Dreaming Room. I think it's such an exciting new concept.
Well, it actually was born much like everything in my life is born by accident. I replaced myself with a CEO, feeling that it was really time for somebody else to take over the reins of E-Myth worldwide and to grow it like I know it can and will. And suddenly I was free. My life turned into a 3-hour job. That was 3 hours a month at the board meeting as chairman of the board. Well, that drove me absolutely nuts. I understand it's not actually a 3-hour job. I'm out speaking around the world, and I'm writing. I have a contract with Doubleday to write 5 more books, the first of which is the one I just described.
Right.
But I was sitting there with essentially nothing to do, and I was really feeling miserable.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to my mother, who's 95 years old, who reads all my books, has no interest in business whatsoever, but she's crazy about me. She figures if she reads my book, she'll know what I'm thinking about, because she never has figured that out. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just pouring out what's going on, Michael? Oh, man, I don't know, Mom. It's like this. Like a kid again. I'm talking to my mother.
Right. Oh, that's so...
And she says, Michael, it sounds like it's time to create something new.
Right.
And it just struck me. Wow. Right. I could do that. Why aren't I doing that?
Right.
And the sudden thought came over a period of several weeks, the dreaming room. And that came from a conversation with my brother-in-law, Marty Sklar, who just retired as vice chairman of Disney.
Yeah,
Disney Imagineering.
That's right, yeah.
And he talked about the dreaming room at Disney. And he said Walt one day got frustrated with the meeting, and he told everybody tomorrow it's going to be different.
Right.
And they came to the meeting room, and there was a sign on it saying the dreaming room. And they went inside, and Walt said, well, you saw the sign. This is the dreaming room. Let me tell you what we do here. What we do here is pursue the impossible. But in order to pursue the impossible, something has to change in us. So I now call us Disney Imagineers. And Disney Imagineering, which is what Marty led for so many years, is the inventor of the parks. What happens in the parks, all of the new things that take place there. And Walt said, from now on, that's what we do here. We create the impossible. We do the impossible, which means none of us and none of our experience really serves any value. We're going to have to discover the impossible within us in order to pursue the impossible.
Right.
And so I thought that was an incredible story. And so I immediately put a dreaming room up in my company, Myth Worldwide. And, of course, we all turned it into a meeting room. So essentially, the whole idea was blown. That was solving problems. The dreaming room has nothing to do with solving problems.
Right.
The dreaming room has to do with inventing an extraordinary new company from scratch. It's a blank piece of paper and beginner's mind. So that's what I decided to do. I decided I'm going to go into a room with 35, 27, 62 people who truly, truly want to create something incredibly original in a business. Whether they own one or whether they don't own one is irrelevant. They truly want to learn how to invent something spectacular, just like Schultz invented Starbucks.
Right.
All the pieces existed before. Furniture existed, coffee existed, tea existed, all of everything existed. All that he did was to reorganize the world in such a way that somebody called it Starbucks. Right. And there it is.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? How do you charge $5 for a cup of coffee? I mean, you got to think about it. How do you do that? You have to invent that. You have to invent grande, tall, venti. You have to invent your own language. You have to invent your own look. You have to invent the way you do what you do in a way that blows people's minds and immediately draws people to you. You have to invent something absolutely spectacular. And that's what we do in the dreaming room. So I meet with people in the dreaming room. Right now it's me. I'm working in the business of the dreaming room while I'm working on the business of the dreaming room to build the dreaming room process and the dreaming room system so that I'll be able to replicate what I do with dreaming room facilitators all over the world, which is what my intention is. So the dreaming room is a not-dead, brain-busting, absolutely stunningly original intensive experience over 2.5 days where I take on the in-the-box thinking of every single person who comes into the room, who comes there to get their problems fixed, only to discover in the dreaming room there are no problems. All there are here are opportunities. Right. And I'm going to demonstrate to them in living color the way a true entrepreneur, the way a true creator takes on the world to create something that didn't exist before. And that's what I do. and I do it with every single participant in the dreaming room, and it blows their minds. They absolutely can't believe what occurs in that 2.5 days. So that's what it is. It's a blow your mind, knock dead, absolutely incredible, stimulating, awakening of the entrepreneurial spirit in every single person that comes there, who even think they're entrepreneurs, only to discover they're not.
Right.
So much different than the E-Myth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Much more on a creative
level. Well, it's the predecessor of the E-Myth. In fact, what I realized is this is what everybody needs to do before they do the E-Myth.
Right.
The E-Myth program, the E-Myth Mastery program, the thing that I've invented since 1977 to this day, the thing that's been delivered to over 55,000 now small business clients in 145 countries, is the tools, the mechanics for once you have a dream, once you have a vision, once you have a purpose, once you have a mission, once you have a great idea for a business, now you can begin to build it with the E-Myth tools and coaching that we've been delivering for so many years. But until you have that great idea, then all you're going to do is you're going to build what you've got, but it's going to invariably disappoint you.
Right,
absolutely.
Very interesting. So dream, invent, create before the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael, are you able to stick around for another segment?
Sure.
Thanks. That's fantastic. Okay.